Beyond.
Beyond! Yeah!
Hey!
It has been too long. I have missed that.
Oh
Hey,
my God,
everybody.
Jared Petty, the Reverend, in the building.
Hey, I was gonna Hi.
Hi, what? Did I cut
Hey.
you off?
No, I was gonna introduce everybody, but the cat is out of the bag. Jared Petty's in the building, joining us.
The Robotnik is out of the Mean Bean Machine.
I'll tell you what, it is so good to be back here. I have missed this. Although I've noticed that since I've been away, you're away from something for a while, you come back, I do detect a certain weird heat in this room.
That's
that
true.
wasn't here before.
It has gotten warmer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
weird. It's
heat
actually
here.
frigid in here. I might put on my traveler's cloak later in the show.
But
in
it's
the
kinda like-
meantime,
Jared, thank you for doing the show. We all of our friends are gone.
yeah.
Everyone's at Dice.
Marty and Goldfarber
Oh,
at Dice.
That sounded ominous. You're like, all of our friends are gone. Like, it's just like, wow. That's,
No, I mean this is one of those weeks when we had President's Day yesterday, so we were off. Normally we record Beyond on Mondays, but we're recording on a Tuesday, and of course it's a short week. Everyone's out of the office, and we're kind of scrambling to get a show together. So, without further ado, Jared Petty, you're here. Jared, if for some reason people don't know who you are, who are you?
yeah, I'm a guy that talks about video games.
You used to work at IGN.
I used to work at IGN. I spent many years here. I really enjoyed my time here. And every now and then drop into Beyond and bother you guys, which I've always loved doing. But no, I make videos on the internet. Imagine that. I make something called Hop, Blip, and a Jump, which is a kind of a part documentary, part diary series. I actually just quit my job to make content full time, which is terrifying and exciting. And frankly, I am blatantly here to shill. So
No, you're doing great. You also, I mean, if you were just like a guy selling hats on the street, I'd be like, no, you can't be on Beyond. But you know your ish when it comes to video games, to PlayStation.
I love video games, and the series I'm doing right now is, I don't think there's ever been anything quite like it before. Hop, Blip, and a Jump is kind of a storytelling combined with a documentary series. It's about how games change us and move us, and how everything you love about video games is connected. Oh, I didn't know this was going to happen. It's me. I'm a little animated man.
So if you're listening to the audio of this, you're probably very confused. But if you're watching the video, we're getting a little clip of the intro, which is made by Panda Musk, who's an old friend of the show.
Yeah, Panda does good work.
Yeah, and Hop, Lip, and a Jump. That's its own channel on YouTube right now.
Its own channel on YouTube right now. You can find it there, hoplipandajump.com. You can find it on YouTube. You can find, and I'm on Twitter. You can find me there.
Your first episode is all about Mario, who's not on PlayStation.
Yeah, it's all about Mario, but it's connected to PlayStation. Again, that's really what it's about.
So it's a Nintendo show. You can't talk about
no way Nintendo-centric, no way PlayStation-centric, Xbox-centric, or tablet. It is about how games interact with one another. It is about how really, ultimately, video gaming is one big game. About how, when we boil it all down, it's really just about jumping over something that's trying to squash you.
There's a Nas song called No Ideas Original that I think is a sort of reductive way of looking at the universe, but I think there's a positive way of understanding that instead of just sort of saying like it's impossible to pitch something that hasn't been done before, there's that whole like Simpsons did it mantra from that South Park episode. There is a connectivity to the sort of the way the video game industry operates, in that you don't press A to jump in a modern PlayStation platforming game without understanding the decades in which that's built upon, right?
You can't press A to jump on a PlayStation game anyway.
That's true.
They spell A with a triangle.
That's a good point. They do spell A with a triangle, but I do think it's a story worth telling.
Kind of an A anyway.
I think what you're talking about there, yes, that's a neat academic observation we're making here, but it goes deeper. The ways games are put together do end up affecting our lives, not just in matters of joy, but in some very touching and profound ways. And that's also something I'm trying to get on. So I hope you'll give it a look if you're listening or watching. If you have time, go take a look at Hop, Blip, and a Jump. I think it's worth your time. I believe in it enough that I just quit my day job to make it, so I think that's worth
kind
doing.
of a hop, blip, and a leap of faith right there.
Yeah, it is.
So what's the YouTube URL?
The YouTube, just go to hoplipandajump.com. That'll take you straight to the Patreon, or you can go to the YouTube, which is
HOPBLIPANDAJUMP.com.
That'll take you there, or hopblipjump.com will also take you there.
That's
so either one.
Well, you should have saved me back then.
You can do either one. And again, you can go to YouTube. It's on my Pockets Full of Soup channel. I do a podcast about storytelling as well. Mm-hmm. I'm a confusing brand.
I think brands have completely. So what's cool is as a brand on the internet, you'll be competing against algorithms that are made intentionally to bury your content.
Exactly.
So that nobody sees things they actually want to.
That's right.
But man, I love video games, and I'm excited to be here talking, because I do love PlayStation, and I'm excited to be here talking about PlayStation, because I think PlayStation, all platforms, this is actually what our second episode is going to be about. All platforms bring unique strengths. Even the technical weaknesses of platforms have often led to stronger games, which is what we're going to talk about in episode 2.
Right.
And each unique platform has its own character and identity that's reflected in its hardware, but even more in its software. I love the feel of PlayStation and the arc from PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 4. I really enjoy the unique way that they've chosen to make games.
I agree. And I think they've done a really good job. And we've talked about this on the show a lot before of sort of taking the last few years to kind of reflect on that.
Yeah.
Between PSX, between the special edition consoles and themes, between, sort of all the commercials that kind of like that bar commercial where they were like, these are all our characters, to those like new PlayStation Amiibo thing we talked about. They're doing a really good job of sort of saying like, hey, wait a minute, like we have an army of nostalgia here.
Yeah,
we have fans, we have fandom, we have characters that are cherished that people have really loved for decades.
For instance, I want to talk about this in a second. Toy Fair was this last weekend, and there's a ton of new Crash Bandicoot collectibles on display there, which is kind of almost seems like, oh, well, why, I guess? I mean, but people do have that nostalgia for Crash Bandicoot. We just got the Insane Trilogy, and there's a lot of kind of murmurs that we're going to see a new game entirely, which seems like a safe bet, honestly, especially with the amount of stuff that's kind of trickling out about that. But it's funny because it kind of, I feel like Crash, when he was introduced, was kind of like, it was sort of, oh, here's PlayStation's Mario. Here's the Sony Sonic the Hedgehog. Like here is the mascot platformer. And, he kind of was around. It was weird enough because he eventually showed up on, Game Boy Advance and stuff too.
Sure.
Because he's owned by Activision. But it's funny because people do have that nostalgia. There is that level of like, oh, that was like my first game for that system. Like, and you have that attachment. And I feel like Sony's always been kind of big on like pushing the hardware and really just kind of, staying in motion, that they haven't stopped to rest on any laurels to be like, oh, remember Crash Bandicoot? But now they're like, maybe I guess you can.
Yeah, I mean, you have PlayStation All-Stars and things like that, but even that's a fairly recent development in their history compared to the arc of their storytelling. And Sony has other focuses, other foci. I don't know what's the proper plural there.
Focusi.
Focus. Okay, but folky, and I sure am feeling folky. All right, there we are. Well, moving on. That was a bad joke.
I liked it.
But
we do those
yeah,
here.
they have some weird character. Think about their handhelds. I mean, Sony handhelds. We give Nintendo a lot of credit for making weird and wacky hardware, but Sony they're like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put a disc in a little plastic sleeve with a big motor in it and stick it on a big wide screen, and we're going to put one knob
and then
on
you could shoot it at enemies.
So the reason for that is that Sony loves proprietary media. They love to invent their own thing, and it's because they had really, really good luck with I mean, it was going back to like transistor radios back in the day.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, and then also here's the CD, which they helped invent. And then they were like, let's do CD-ROMs for video games. And then let's do memory stick duo. Let's do VMUs. Let's do Vita memory cards. And everyone's like, please just stop. Don't just use the thing.
And yet,
everyone
even
uses.
that weirdness does kind of affect the direction that their hardware arc takes, and by extension, their software. And I think that's fun. I mean, a game like Tearaway couldn't have existed until Vita happened.
Right.
And that's cool.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love that because you look at kind of the legacy of Sony as a platform, and like where is their Mario? Like, who is that? And it's like, well, they've always been a hardware company first and foremost, whereas Nintendo is like, they're a toy company.
Yeah.
That's what their background is. That of course they're like more fun and colorful. It's just kind of where that is.
I think they've done a really great job of playing to their strengths over the last few years too. I mean, instead of saying like, where is their Mario, I would turn on my Nintendo Switch and be like, where is their Bloodborne? You know? Like where, we'll talk about Metal Gear in a minute, but obviously that's a franchise that was synonymous with PlayStation forever.
Until it wasn't.
Yeah. And Crash Bandicoot's the same way. And I think that like the remaster sold well, and I think the excitement around that character is still there. The audience who grew up with it is now old enough to make reckless purchasing decisions, I would say. The kind that Max and I cover our desks with.
Yeah.
So getting toys is awesome. Getting a new game is very likely.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of excitement.
The company NECA, who did the Nathan Drake action figure and those Sackboy figures, and has a God of War quarter scale figure coming out soon, is doing 3 different Crash Bandicoots. There's also a company called Kid Robot that does kind of cool like urban vinyl type of stuff, and they've got little like little blind box figurines of Crash and friends, as well as some plushies. And then there's this weird line of these figures that are made to hold controllers or tablets, and they just look like these weird like they look like
we have a Mario one of these in
yeah.
the office. It looks like a giant amiibo that's like begging for money.
They look like they're asking for forgiveness, or they're going to get their like hands cut off in some kind of a ceremony. It's also kind of odd to see like, here's Crash Bandicoot holding a Nintendo Switch. All right.
That's
Anyway,
odd.
I guess he is coming to that. But if you want this terrifying figurine to hold your things, there you go.
He's doing he's doing the DBT technique, willing hands. There's a therapeutic technique where you're supposed to hold your hands like that when you're really upset, and it's supposed to make you feel better.
Really?
It looks
really?
exactly like what he's doing right there.
Well, good to know.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing.
So, big, huge thing that happened today, sort of, is that Metal Gear Survive came out, I think.
Really?
Yeah. So this game,
Sort of.
Yeah. So this is a game that requires constant online connection. Chloe Rad is at home for IGN, and I think she's reviewing it. I think we're trying to stream it immediately after this. But again,
The trick with this is that everyone is trying to review this game right now, and no one actually can, despite being told that we could. And so what's happening here is that we are, and everyone playing it, is locked out of specific functionality that is not live yet, 2018videogames.com. And it's, I don't know if that's a real website. And we can't actually give you an accurate critical assessment of what this is. I have been cautiously optimistic about this from the jump because I love the gameplay of 5. I believe all of us do, right? And I don't know what this game is, and I don't know when we can play it or when we can tell you what it is. This is obviously, it's an online game, right? So it's going to live and breathe, grow over time, hopefully.
Yeah, you'd think so. It's also, I mean, it does have a single player component, which they seem to put a lot less of an emphasis on.
Right.
There was, I think, the store that you could buy to do microtransactions with was online, but the actual game wasn't, which is kind of like a. Yeah, at this point, you just got to sort of shake your head at Konami. I went on Reddit to be like, oh, maybe there's somebody who's like collected like a thread of reviews. There were no reviews on launch day because, and again, I don't think this is a terrible game. I don't think this is a fundamentally awful game. I think that it is a game that has been just hampered and crippled from the get-go by bad business decisions from like a tone-deaf publisher.
It's the Cloverfield paradox of the Metal Gear franchise, essentially.
Yeah, I went into Kind of Funny Games Daily yesterday, and they were like, "Yeah, Survive's coming out tomorrow," and we were all just kind of like, "Really?" And the fact that a room full of people that really care about video games
Tactical espionage
and Metal
release
Gear
date.
are going, really?
To pull a fast one on a bunch of people that work in the industry. I mean, we track this stuff. We've talked about this game for years now on this show, or what feels like it. And we've run the gamut of being like, let's hold out hope to maybe we shouldn't support this because Konami made terrible ethical decisions, to maybe we shouldn't punish the people who are working on this game currently because maybe there's some cool stuff in it. The trailer we just showed right there, had you not told me that was a Metal Gear game, I would have been like, this game looks really interesting. Like it's a bunch of it's stealth run and gun army dudes like using sci-fi weaponry on weird glowing cone head red. Like it looks interesting, right?
Yeah, it doesn't look
That's
like
a good
Metal Gear.
pitch right there, what you just said out loud.
sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Josh Nedich over in our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/group/podcastbeyond, plug, said, is Metal Gear Survive doomed out of the gate? Even if it is the best game ever, people will still hate it, right? This game just, as a game that has come out today, everything sucks top to bottom. The game itself, I think, is fine, but I think people are just so ready to hate it that nobody here wanted to review it because no matter what you give it, you're going to be either you're too lenient or you're I don't know, too mean or whatever. Like I don't think there's any good answer. I don't think there's any good outcome. I think from the get go, they should have just called it a Contra game.
Yeah,
if they'd been like, it's Contra Extreme, you'd be like, what on earth?
I think at some point you've got to be able to make another Metal Gear game. I want this game to be good. I think generally all of us sitting at this table want games that come out to be good.
I want every game to be great. I mean, that sucks for wallets, right?
Yeah.
That's the only thing that really gets hurt in a situation like that. But in a utopia, there are no bad games ever again.
So I want this game to be good. I have no idea if it is or isn't. I know there's going to be some baggage with Metal Gear. I do think people tend to gravitate toward good games as long as they're shown that they're good, as long as people like you and other places and people on YouTube are out there showing, or their friends are giving word of mouth, or they actually give it an honest try, that they tend to gravitate toward good games, even when they're predisposed not to like them. So if Konami releases a good Metal Gear game, I mean, don't we all want a good Metal Gear game again someday?
Of course
yes,
we do.
But I also want to hurt Konami because they were mean to Kojima, rated Metal Gear.
Yeah, they were mean to Kojima. I think
I
that there's
say that half sarcastically, but that is where a lot of people are coming from.
I mean,
For all the joy this game might bring me is half of what that tweet of Kojima holding up like this Photoshop cup that said Konami Tears. Like that's I love that. That's a great revengeance story, effectively, right? I mean, the thing is here is that we, as whatever journalists in quotes or reviewers, critics, all that garbage conflated together, we do have to come into these scenarios sort of objectively, right? And we do have to judge the game for what it is attempting to do and succeeding and failing in that attempt. That is effectively the way video game reviews work, right? We sit down, we don't go, this is a 10 out of 10. Oh, now it's a 9 out of 10, now it's an 8 out of 10. We don't do that. That's not what normal critics should do.
And also, if this game didn't say Metal Gear on it, like how would people approach it? Would we be talking about it? I feel like we probably wouldn't. It's a $40 game about like muddy military men fighting the zombies in the field.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's the thing is for me, it's like 10% weird, and if it was 30% weird, you and I would be talking about this every week. But because it's just it's not weird enough to be as weird as the great Metal Gear games are. I haven't seen any like purple helicopters blasting David Bowie and Fultoning sheep and stuff. Maybe that stuff's in there. But that game was just weird enough that it constantly kept me going, right? And plus the gameplay was fantastic.
And I do want to live in a world where whether this game succeeds or not, whether this game is good or not, and then from what I've seen, I'm not optimistic right now. But I want to live in a world where Metal Gear 6 happens and where the franchise is handed over to another young, brilliant mind. And whoever they are, whoever that person is, they come in with a love for the property, a love for its lore and its history, and they're allowed by the developer and the publisher to do that, to make it what they want it to be.
I think that person is doomed, though, right? I think that like the toxicity around the Kojima departure and the subsequent responses from Konami, blocking him from going to the Game Awards, actively stopping their current employees from having great health care, all of that mixed in with the fact that they made some of the best looking Metal Gear cutscenes ever and shoved them in a pachinko machine, and then kicked this thing out to no fanfare whatsoever, is just a bad way of steering the conversation about what is a beloved franchise that should and could live on forever in the hearts and minds of future video game developers.
I think that right now you're probably right, but I do think, and I'm repeating myself a little here from something I said on another show earlier.
That's okay.
Remember this in video games, that memories can be kind of short. What I mean, remember a year ago when to take us out of PlayStation for a second, remember when Switch was going to fail?
Yeah.
Remember when everybody just knew Switch was going to fail? And here we sit a year later with the fastest selling console, 3 of the best games of the last year on it.
Right. No. On this very show, we got a question from somebody that I answered about what do you think about Nintendo Switch? And I was like, here's all my concerns as a hardcore longtime Nintendo fan. And then they solved most of those out the gate. And the system still has its issues. But I mean, ultimately, we're okay with all of that, right?
Exactly. And so we have that.
Let me ask you this question. Sorry. No, let me ask you this question to double down on what you're saying here. I'll ask you guys both this, and you tell me what your immediate response is. Next year, they're rebooting Ghostbusters again.
Okay. I'd watch another Ghostbusters reboot.
Would you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so everyone's totally calm about that.
Yeah,
I don't want to talk about Ghostbusters.
See?
No, I'd watch another Ghostbusters.
Well, because this is like, all right, I brought up the Cloverfield Paradox, which is like a movie that just appeared out of nowhere that was fine. It was okay. It's borderline not great.
Well, if you tell me it's Ghostbusters with Paul W.S. Anderson, I'm going to be like, no. But let's say you said it's Ghostbusters and it's going to be helmed by Guillermo del Toro.
Right.
I'd be like, I'd watch that.
Okay, I would too.
Well, that's what I'm thinking about for Metal Gear. When we talk about, a year ago, Switch was going to fail. Right now, Metal Gear can't possibly make a good new game.
So who makes a new game then?
If you get an exceptional person attached to a Metal Gear project, maybe so, or someone we've never heard of.
Who's the video game Guillermo del Toro? Is it Suda51?
I think it's Kojima, actually.
It's
Kojima to do a Metal Gear game again?
Yeah.
Actually, Guillermo del Toro, the video game Guillermo del Toro is in.
I picked exactly the wrong director to go to. Wow, I could not have muddled this metaphor or this.
No. I think you're doing good. I mean,
I don't think it has to be an auteur.
Solid.
It could just be somebody young.
Miyazaki, maybe,
or not even young. Maybe it's not a name. That's the other bet. I mean, maybe it's just somebody you look. You ever just watched a preview for something you're completely uninterested in, and then 60 seconds later go, "Wow, I remember." I'm an old man, but I remember sitting in a movie theater when nobody knew what The Matrix was, and watching a trailer and going from Keanu Reeves as that goofy guy from Bill and Ted and Parenthood to, I have to see this movie. Sure. I don't know what this is, but this looks amazing. If a Metal Gear trailer like that came out, I'd be intrigued.
Right. But the problem is seeing the trailer for The Matrix for the first time and being like, I don't know what this is. No matter what, if it says Metal Gear on the front of it, you're going to have an idea of what it should be. And it might not be a very specific thing, but you're going in with some kind of preconceived notion about what this game is. And unfortunately, Metal Gear Survive seems like it's pretty far off the mark from anything people picture when they think Metal Gear.
That's the thing. I'm jumping out into hypotheticals. Coming back around, I don't want to raise expectations. The fact is, I am not hot on this. I haven't seen a lot that makes me want to play it.
Totally fine if they just had done like a victory lap type of thing and they were like, hey, we took some of the most iconic areas from the entire Metal Gear series and we dumped them into Fox Engine. Now you can relive your favorite memories from the tanker levels in Metal Gear Solid 2 or Shadow Moses. Go, turn you loose and just, maybe make it like a time attack thing.
That's a really good sort of like fan nostalgia play. And I'm kind of shocked they haven't done anything like that. This is the perfect time to sort of be like, hey, to get back in the good graces of the audience, here's a collection of classics remastered or something.
Metal Gear Complete, 1 through 5. Shadow of the Colossus style.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
So cool.
Yeah.
Fox. And maybe we'll see that. There are rumors that we're going to see something like that. It could also just be an upscaled version of the HD collection from last gen.
So ultimately, reviews being late, the online servers not being up and everything, all of that is water under the bridge. Video games are business. Konami is a business. And this game has to perform well, and I don't, especially with the fact that literally nobody I know can tell me that this game was coming out today. I do not see this game tracking well in the MPD. I don't even see it cracking I don't even think it'll crack top 7, maybe even top 10. I will actually make a bold move and just say it won't even crack top 10.
Okay.
Which is crazy because it's multi-platform, and it's based on
how do you think it's going to do critically?
I think it'll hover around the 60s, 70s tops. Yeah. And I would love to be wrong. I would love to see this game be excellent and then for the word of mouth to get out and for the franchise to be saved. I just don't see it happening.
Unless you guys text me a week from now, go, you have to play this game.
Yeah.
I'm not going to play it.
Yeah.
That is where I am right now. And it's not because of any ideological thing. It's just I got stuff to play right now.
Yeah.
And I need a good reason to have friends call and say, no, this is great. You need to jump right in.
Well, that's the thing. And I think Max just hinted at it, right? Like ethical reasons aside, which is a pretty big aside, no one's really like, this game has this gameplay that you have to do this, and this. This is a game of the year contender. This, rip Shadow of the Colossus out of your PS4. Play everything that you're playing in there right now. Get rid of it. It's time for Metal Gear Survive.
What if it's all just Monster Hunter DLC? It's a secret collaboration between Konami and Capcom, and it's actually just a giant Monster Hunter DLC.
All right, rein it in.
I just want a new Castlevania game.
I want a new Castlevania.
I was playing
a Castlevania game in the Fox Engine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Or we're going to get Bloodstained this year, right? Is that this year?
No one knows.
That's not a Konami game.
That's not.
No, it's not, but we're still going to get it.
Anyway.
I still don't know if that's going to be like the Mighty Number 9 of Castlevania.
Anyway.
What I played was fun.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So moving on, something announced today, I guess it was today, Burnout Paradise is getting a remaster. That's coming out next month. That was kind of out of the blue.
This has been like leaked in like Amazon France like listings for a couple weeks now. So I think it was all but confirmed that something like this was happening. The anniversary of the game just passed. But it's cool. We have official confirmation that this game is coming to next-gen platforms.
Cool. And people like it because you got the cars and you go around and do stuff. So here's the thing is I never screwed with Burnout a whole lot. People always told me that I would love it because they're like, it's like MotorStorm, but everyone else actually plays it. And I was like, oh, yeah, interesting. But yeah, I mean, this seems like a good time. Isn't it like Burnout Revenge is the one that people are really crazy for? And then people like this one too? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because people play these games as racing games. I don't. I like these games when they focus on 100-car pileups and like smash and wreck the car modes and all like chaos. I play these games for chaos. If I wanted to play like a driving sim, I would play those. I'm here to destroy the vehicles, and so
I do hate the car.
I hate these cars, and I just want them hurt. I hate that bike. I hate that Ghostbusters car. I want to break them all.
All right.
So yeah, you'll be able to play this soon and wreck the cars or do the races.
Cool. So speaking of big anniversaries, the PS4 was announced 5 years ago today. That's kind of a huge thing.
That's a humongous deal. It was that nice boy Mark Cerny, right?
That's right.
Mark
Cerny.
Mark Cerny
apparently had been working on the console for 5 years already at the time.
Creator of Marble Madness. Also creator of Knack.
That's when they revealed Knack too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, was this when they
This was
revealed
at
Knack?
the big. This was at the big thing. when
Knack was inflicted on the world that day?
Let's see. They showed off. They showed off the controller.
Okay.
Which was, and they really, there were a couple of things that are noticeably kind of off from how the PS4 actually went. They talked about the Vita interacting with it. They were still very much trying to be like, yeah, the Vita, and they were like, check it out, we got a touchpad on the controller. We don't use that for anything.
No, I mean, there's remote play, which I think a lot of people enjoyed, but then having to use the shoulder buttons on like the weird rear touch.
No. I mean the
thing.
touchpad on the
the touchpad itself. I thought you were talking about the Vita.
No.
Like the front touch screen, you mean?
No, I mean
The thing you use as a start button,
Yeah.
basically.
the PS4's touchpad in terms of like fanfare and hurrah going into the launch is kind of up there with the Kinect in terms of this gen's kind of by the wayside tech.
Which
Which is too bad because I like it.
way less intrusive.
It's
way less
fine.
intrusive.
It's
but-
always just sort of. I feel like it's more surprising when it gets used for something. Like in,
Nowadays,
I think in The Witcher 3, I think it's like if you swipe up, it automatically opens up your map. Like basically, they made swipe gestures to replace hotkeys or whatever,
Yeah.
which is cool. And then there's some games where you can use it to wiggle around the map. But I always I'll do that by accident. I'll be like, oh, neat, and then I'll play with it for 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And then I'll move on and just treat it like a button the rest of the time.
I still use it to input letters and numbers.
Oh, do you do that?
Yeah,
You do the whole
I do. I do
okay.
the do. I still love to do that. It just feels good to me. I like the tactile feeling on my fingertips. I know it's useless, but I love it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That actually is that's a good use.
Yeah.
Honestly, because you end up doing that a decent amount on the store and such.
But yeah, it's really kind of funny to think back. Like the PS4 has been wonderful. It's been a This has been a great console generation. I've especially loved the PS4. I feel like a lot of the stuff that it does really well has been really kind of simple quality of life and just basic sort of infrastructure things.
It's weird because I went back to sort of celebrate this anniversary because PlayStation put out a official blog talking to a bunch of the developers who were there, who were part of that. Guys like Nate Fox and Mark Cerny, who were sort of like, we were really excited about this and it's really cool to reflect on it. Then I went and read what people were saying that day on the press side. And overwhelmingly, like it's cool to look back with sort of rose-tinted goggles and go like, hey, this is really, this is a beautiful time to find out the name of the console, which is like really funny that we had a big day to be like, it's named the new number.
We thought it was going to be called the Orbis.
Yeah, exactly. But most of the press was like, we flew to New York for this? Like, this is awesome, but there's nothing really here. We got a couple of details, like, what was it? Diablo 3 was announced. We found out Watch Dogs was being ported. Found out about a new Infamous game and Killzone, which was awesome. We didn't get to really see a ton of them in motion. And they talked a lot about the system architecture and what it could do, but didn't really actually show a lot of that off.
I think what was important, though, was that they did focus a lot. We forget now that the PlayStation 4 was an act of repentance on the part of PlayStation. The PS3 was an overpriced, over-designed machine that was created to be a multimedia center for your home. I mean, that was the angle they pushed, and it between the internal architecture, which made it hard to develop games on it, especially early in the generation, and the fact that it kind of lacked focus, it really allowed PlayStation to be leapfrogged by Microsoft for that generation.
For a while.
For a while. Yeah,
I mean,
for several years, but that while was long.
It was long, and there was a time where 360 was the leading platform in conversations that gen. But PS3 kept trucking, and I think it got to a price point where people were really happy with it.
Oh yeah,
it became something that they redesigned it a bunch of times. It didn't look like a pillow made of stone.
Oh no, I love the PS3. This isn't trashing.
No,
that,
totally.
But launch, and not just the launch, but a couple years after that launch was a nightmare.
No, I mean they shot it out of the sky by coming out and saying $599.
Yeah, but the PS4 was everything that was not.
Yes.
It was like this is a thing you play games on, and it set the stage for the current generation that we're in, because this has been a...
Well, then Microsoft was like, we have a $500 all-in-one entertainment and everyone's like, what are you doing? They're like, the Kinect comes attached to it. And you're like, oh,
you have
God.
to use the camera to talk to the movies, and you can't give anything to your friends. And Sony was like, this set up, February 5 years ago, was this set up June 5 years ago, which was the E3 where they walked out and they were just like, we're taking your lunch money.
Yep. Come on out here, independent developers, and think about how that's affected the direction that things like Switch have taken since. And I mean, and the fact that the PlayStation is wildly succeeding, and maybe beyond Sony's dreams at this point. I mean, it's just a great place to go play video games. I love that hardware.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Love that
Well, I mean,
platform.
even the tail end of the PS3, I think Sony's always kind of triumphed toward the end of a console's life cycle because they don't get they don't get stingy. They're pretty good with price cuts. And then there's this library in place. In the case of the PS3, that's when PlayStation Plus was rolled out, and it's like, hey, you get a free game every month on this thing that you're paying for to do, I don't know, multiplayer anyway.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's a pretty cool deal, you know?
No, it's like it's really fantastic to reflect on this console and think about somebody like Mark Cerny who's been working on the PS4 for a full decade. And I was thinking about this morning, actually. When I wake up in my apartment or when I come home from work, it's either first thing in the morning or right when I walk in the door. Every single time this happens, I walk through my living room, past my big TV, and I have my PS4 controller on my coffee table, and I hit the little home button on it, and I hear that beep, and it turns on. And I jump in and I play like Bloodborne for 10 minutes, or I get my daily thing in Battlefront, or I go on the store and I download some stuff, or I check the free games on PS Plus. It's just part of my routine of like waking up to go make my coffee. I walk by that controller, I turn it on. The PS4, yeah.
I use it constantly.
It is such an integral part of my home entertainment experience.
It's so great because you can like stuff like cloud saves is so like I'll be playing a game at the PS4 at our desk, and I'll be like, oh, it's time to go home now, or whatever. I got to go do something else, and I'll just upload to cloud. And then when I get home, I'm just like, oh, download, and then there it is. And the fact you can suspend stuff, like if I went home right now and turned on my PS4 or woke it up or whatever, I'd be sitting there in Yakuza, and Kiryu would just be like checking his watch and smoking a cigarette. And it's like the fact that it's like it's still there, and I don't have to just start it up from the ground up. And
those are the little things this generation I think are like truly understated that Sony's done such a great job of doing.
The entire design philosophy seems to be, how do we enable people to play whatever games they want as quickly and easily as possible?
Yep.
And that it is a tool for doing that. Big or small, indie or AAA, it is great for playing games.
yeah. I remember being pretty optimistic about the PS4 going in.
Same.
And yeah.
Well, because I think that like and we just alluded to it a minute ago, but I think that the PS3 ended really strong.
Yeah,
you know,
it
and it's you get a lot of there's a lot of like it's sort of weird because the last year or two in a video game console life cycle is always odd because it's kind of make it or break it, right? Where you can walk away with a couple of really great swan songs that historically don't sell super well but kind of leave a good taste in your mouth, or it's sort of just like peters off and dies, which we've seen a lot with consoles where you're just kind of like, why do I still have this? And your last thought, the last taste in your mouth of the system is dragging it into GameStop and being like, $14, I guess. Thanks.
I mean,
like,
the PS2 ended with GTA San Andreas and Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah.
The PS4 ended with GTA 5 and what else? I don't know, Last of Us.
Right, exactly. Which carried over bridged the gap to the next generation. And I think we're going to see the same thing with the PS4 to PS5. I don't think the PS4 is going to end with a whimper like some other consoles do. I think that's the great thing about having that much of a impact on the retail market.
Yeah.
And that giant of a massive of a user base there.
I think that's one thing Sony's pulled off that's probably very unique for the company in the history of the medium, is that from PS1 to PS4, all their home consoles have ended strongly.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, unprecedented. I'd like to sit and do the math.
That's so nice.
It is nice. I mean, you look at some of the other consoles, and that doesn't really like. I don't know. I cover Nintendo a lot here, and a lot of their consoles are just sort of like, oh no, we stopped last year.
No, Suda
where'd you go?
Suda got the name for his game "Let It Die" from Nintendo's view on late console cycles. Nintendo, that's what they do. They make something great, and then a Nintendo console's dead when they just dead.
Right.
Yeah. We don't make games for this. What are you talking about?
Yep.
That thing? What's that?
Cole Jameson Allen over in our Facebook group said, what do you think happened to the $20 greatest hits line that we saw with other Sony platforms? We see price drops on games, but not consistent pricing or change in packaging.
Yeah, that sucks. I feel like that's something that, I mean, it's weird because you could write a list of things that I'm nostalgic for around the video game industry that are just like sort of bells and whistles. They're not even really big sweeping things, but like that along with like manuals and game demos are just like little things that made the world a little bit better.
There's a couple things here. One is the shift to digital, where
Yeah.
if you're late to the party, and then I mean, also I always hated that if you got the greatest hits, you were like, oh, you were late. You jumped on that late.
Really? Oh, you got the stripe.
It's like, oh, you got the poor kids one, like, and I think I had like a copy of, and they would be like in a red box instead of a clear one or whatever. I mean, they had just
Oh God, yeah, I know. My friends and I were collecting like PS2 and GameCube games in college, and the PS2 red stripe ones, and then the yellow on the GameCube was just like I screwed up and traded in Luigi's Mansion and then bought it again a couple years later, and it was just like this. It was just like a giant butterfly sitting on my shelf.
Really, that never bothered me. I'm a bargain shopper though. I'm cheap, so I'm just like, no,
the
sometimes
nice
I'll just wait for
price.
something. Yeah, just nice price. But $20 games, who doesn't love that, right?
So there's another thing to consider is that when that sort of platform of PlayStation greatest hits was unveiled, games cost $50 or $60, period. You didn't have games that launched at $20 or $30. Like that was incredibly unusual, I feel like. And now it's like, I don't know, we've got games that launch on PlayStation Plus, like Ollie Ollie 2 was like, hey, here's a brand new game. It's free. You already own it, whether you want it or not.
Rocket League.
Yeah, exactly.
Rocket League, which now I just saw at Toy Fair, they're making Hot Wheels sets, and it's just so cool to see because
which is
Dunham's been on the show. He created this show.
Yep.
And he's off doing his thing. It's amazing. No, I really miss this line. And Max, I think you just hinted at it. I wonder if the digital ecosystem has screwed that up for people because people can kind of say to themselves oh, I really want that game. And instead of being in a store and being like, oh, $20, they'll just jump on the shop, on the PlayStation store and be like, $30, but I don't have to get in my car.
Yeah.
My car stinks.
I
hate the car. I spilled water in it a year ago, and it smells like socks.
I
have to go out on my porch. There's that moth there.
Yeah, I'm insulated from that
by
by cheapness. So I'm probably the wrong person.
We
to comment
frequently
on
get sales that are like, oh, it's a PlayStation anniversary sale, and you're like, I don't know what time of year it is. I guess I'll click on this, and you look at it.
Yeah.
I kind of wish there was a section of the store that was like greatest hits, and it was just that was where stuff lived, and it would be maybe a flat price there, or it was always cheap or something. But at the same time, we get free games every month. So
I actually think it's extraordinary that digital games do so well despite the constant struggle it is to navigate literally any shop, let alone Sony's. Because on PS4, while we're talking about how great the system is and how much I love it, we complain about this a lot. There is no section like that, right? It's hard to really find these are, and I don't know who builds that, but get somebody at Sony to be like, the top 25 PS4 games. Take our damn list. I don't care. We make it every year. Make a section on the store that says these are the must buy. They had a sale the other day that was just like the must buy games, and it had a bunch of stuff in there. It was like, not really, not that one, not that game, not so much.
Not so much for that.
No, not really so much. I'm not going to call any games out specifically, but not so much.
Not Knack 2.
Not so much Knack. I wouldn't really say Knack 2 is in the top 25 PS4 games. Or the top 100.
Oh, that's right. That game came out.
Yeah.
Huh. So the other thing was we have free games now. It's kind of crazy that you go in the store and it's just hey,
there's a whole section of those.
Here's Warframe. People love that game. It's just if you want to go play a game and screw around online, there are free to play games that are instantly accessible, and you're like, that's it. I get in there and I play it.
I think it's an incredibly smart business model too. I find it baffling on something like iPhone. I've talked about this before, but I remember walking by somebody in first class who's got who had an iPad Pro and was playing a game with ads, and it was oh, you'll spend $1,100 on a tablet, but you won't spend $1.99 on the version that doesn't have ads.
That's so weird.
PS4 getting cheaper every single day, obviously. Yeah, I hate people and you're in first class. I want to be that dumb with money. So PS4, I think people get one for a couple $100 now, and they jump on it and they're like, that was expensive, or I got it as a gift for Christmas. And there's a whole section of free games.
Yeah.
And they'll go in and they'll be like, oh, I'll spend $4 on these goblin ears for this man I got for free.
So we haven't talked about PlayStation VR on here in a while.
Right.
One of the problems with PlayStation VR is that you kind of have to set it up. You got to move your furniture around. You got to calibrate stuff, and you got to put a thing on your head. And that's a little bit more than just pushing the home button and picking up a controller.
Yeah.
I had some uninterrupted time yesterday to go exploring in virtual reality.
Ooh.
And I got to jump on a very weird free-to-play game that is wonderfully enough cross-platform.
Oh.
It's called Rec Room. I think I've mentioned it before, but I got to really actually kind of go in the deep end a little bit, and I had an incredibly strange time. So this is a free-to-play game where basically it's kind of like Wii Sports, but in VR. You've got these kind of these me-type characters you make, and you start out in your sort of dormitory, you do character customization. I think it's all free-to-play in that you can unlock tokens to buy cosmetic items. But people really just use it as kind of a place to hang out. There's laser tag, there's paintball, there's I don't know, ping pong, racquetball nonsense.
These men look like melted Playmobil toys.
I don't like how they look, but you quickly kind of forget about that
Sure.
when you're actually screwing around in there. So I jumped in here and I was like, you know what? The thing about this also is everybody has their mics on.
Yeah.
It's all locative. So like if you're standing next to somebody, they hear you very clearly. But if you go 10 feet away, they're suddenly quiet, which I something I love in games. So I decided I was like, I kind of want to just make a friend in virtual reality. Like there's this feeling of like jumping into a chat. And I had that same weird feeling of like, this is, I'm kind of going out into open water here. Like I did going into a chat room in 1997 or whatever. But I jumped in this place and there's kind of this main sort of rec room area, which is kind of like a hub. People are just hanging out. There's, fake soda machines everywhere, and you can just pick up a bottle of water and hold it over your head, and it'll drop these little fake water, and it'll go glug, 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 glug.
Do you drink it or just pour it on your
You
head?
can like pour it on your face, and it'll go glug, 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 and you can go up to other people. Like I went up to somebody, and I was like, "I'm going to make you very wet," and I like poured it on him, and he was like, "Hey man, what are you doing?" And
I
what's
love
really
that your
weird-
own personal Black Mirror episode is beginning right now. This is
Yeah,
great.
so I was kind of hanging out here, and what's really strange is everyone looks like these melted Playmobil figurines,
Right.
But you can't really tell how old people are unless you listen to them talking. And I was in this area with, I'm guessing, a very young child, an incredibly foul-mouthed teenager, and then this Southern gentleman who was kind of like lecturing the teenager on his language. So
Is that your three ghosts combined to make you?
I feel like this. If you told me this was like inside my own head, I'd be like, "That works. That makes sense." But it was really strange.
You'll be
The
visited by a
the
gold bar with
PlayStation's been
Jared
off
and a Brian.
The PlayStation's been turned off for 10 minutes, Max. You're just wearing the headset.
My imagination. But this little kid is running around, and he sounds like one of the kindergartners on South Park or the first graders, whatever, like the really little kids.
So he's a child.
He's like, "Who got the music box? Where's the music box?"
Wait, aren't you supposed to be like 12 to use PSVR?
Yeah,
Otherwise
you'd
you go
think
blind
so.
or your head
Apparently,
explodes.
some parents don't click all the fine print or whatever, and there's an option to be like, "Don't put me with the junior kids" or whatever. But this child is just running around in VR, and he's like, "You want to see a secret?" And I was like, "What is it?" And I like followed him. He's like, "Follow me." And I was like, where are you taking me? And he takes me to this poster that says like ping pong on it. And he's like, "Put your head in there." And I was like, "What?"
Head in the poster.
I go up to the poster and I stick my head, and my head goes through the wall, and there's a secret room full of giant trophies. And I'm like, "Oh, thanks, man." And he's like running off, and he's like, "Who has the music box?" And he's just like chasing after somebody. And I go over, and the foul-mouthed teenager, who the last time I checked was getting lectured by the Southern adult man for saying the N-word. And again, it's the
got
internet.
dark.
It's terrible. And at this point, the teenager is like, "Yeah, man, some of my friends caught themselves," and the guy's like, "Hey man, that's no good. You gotta take care of yourself and stuff." And I'm like, "What is happening? Like, what is this place? Like, I'm in this virtual space where there are children and there are sad teenagers and there are like adult men being like, 'Hey, don't hurt yourself. That's no good.' And it's just everyone looks like a horrible melted Playmobil figurine."
Good
and I was
Lord.
like, I gotta get the hell out of here. So I go into like kind of the room selection area thing, and I'm like, I gotta find a cool room to hang out in, and you can kind of sort by like most viewed, most voted, or whatever. And I see one that's called, it was like the most upvoted or whatever. And I go to it, and it's like this kind of hub area, and then there's this sort of almost Mario 64-esque kind of like there are these like doors that have titles above them, and I think it's supposed to be like kind of like community chosen rooms. And I see one that's called Xeno Queen, and I'm like, maybe this isn't a good thing to go into in VR, but what the hey?
Hell yeah.
And I go in there, and somebody has created this incredibly, like, it's a cross between the Aliens colony, like the Weyland-Yutani reactor facility, and an 80s laser tag arena. And there's this entirely like scratch-built xenomorph queen, and there are eggs and face huggers everywhere. But it's got that awful.
Were you freaking out?
I was kind of freaking out because it was totally empty. There was no one there. And I guess you can use it to host laser tag matches and stuff, but there's no one there, so it's just me and this giant queen alien statue. And I'm like, what? I gotta get the hell out of here.
So it's like when they go to like fake Coney Island and Good Time or something like that.
Yes.
It's like the park after hours.
So I'm like,
This is like the best or worst D&D adventure I've ever been on.
dude, I mean, the fact that I was exploring foreign places in virtual reality was just blowing my mind. So I pulled up another place that was like the room that had the most players in it or whatever. And I go to it, and it's called Suburbia. And the map is just, it actually kind of looked like South Park. It was just this suburban winter field, like outside of a school. There's a house, there's a gazebo. And there's, in the far side of the field, there's this cluster of people. And they're all hanging out, and they're kind of like, you can sort of fly if you screw around. There's all these weird kind of settings for people who want to do kind of more Minecrafty world building type of stuff. And these people are hanging out in this circle, and I approach them, and they're all wearing really fancy clothes. Like their avatars are all like tricked out, and they're all really high level. And I'm like, what are they doing? And I just hung out there and I eavesdropped for a while, and I figured out that this is a group of really high level Rec Room players who wanted to start their own YouTube channel. And they were sitting around in a circle, and they were brainstorming what they should call it. And at the same time, I think they wanted to start doing like Rec Room movies. Like they wanted to do like kind of, machinima type stuff. And then one of them just had this like paintball shotgun that he was just like firing in the air. And they were like, hey man, hey, the shotgun, quit it. And the rest are like, should we call it like Wreck and Roll or like Tales of the Rec Room? What do you think about that? And I'm just like,
You're snitching on their whole business model. Right
I don't know.
now.
I don't know what they settled on. And I'm just kind of like, I'm just sort of looking at them, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? And so I bounced to another area, and it's this whole sort of like just playground. It's like it's just a virtual playground
I am
space.
absolutely convinced the PlayStation's been off for 15 minutes at this point. You're just wearing the headset.
Yeah.
and-
I mean,
and imagine this.
I've gone into another dimension pretty much.
This is amazing.
I go to this other place, and there's this kind of crazy laser tag arena. There's kids running around zapping each other, but there's like no score, so everyone's just kind of screwing around.
Okay.
And these kids are sort of sitting around. And I was like, and it's awkward because you're mic'd up too, and I just go, what are you guys doing? What are you guys up to? And they were like, we're just hanging out, not much really. And I was like, are you guys like teenagers? And they're all kind of like, yeah, like I think one of them's like, I'm like 11 or something. I'm like, all right. And they're like, how old are you? And I'm like, 31. And I feel like it's weird. I'm having an out of body experience, and I'm in this like virtual play space. And this kid comes up to me and he goes, hey, you want to go make a restaurant? And I'm like,
What?
okay. Like, what are we doing? And I'm like, I'm like, the whole time I'm like, this feels like a creepy thing to be doing, but I'm also like, I'm doing research for a PlayStation show that I host. So, so I tag along with him, and he takes me to this room, and it's this big theater. And he's like, all right, let's start putting out counters. And he goes to this like machine that like generates like Sims furniture or whatever. And he's like instructing me on how to arrange the furniture. And he's like, we got to put out stools. And I'm like, what is this? And he's like, I'm going to try to make a door. And then he's using VR, like the creator gun, to make these like shapes. And he's like, I'm going to make a big door that goes into the back area. Can you hold it up for me so I can freeze it? And I'm basically helping this kid assemble virtual reality IKEA furniture.
Aw.
And then I sort of get bored, and I go over and I take like the maker gun,
You
and I start.
you found your ghost son.
I found this ghost child, and the whole time I'm just sort of like, I don't know, like playing with this kid. And I think he was, probably like a teenager or whatever. But I was like, I go off and I start making weird shapes with the gun, and I start making these giant pink cylinders, and I'm like, these look like hot dogs. I think our restaurant's gonna sell hot dogs. Put up a picture here, and then I wrote out big hot dogs, and I got these like,
And they're cut up for you in case
Yeah.
you have small teeth.
yeah, and they're huge. They're the size of like of stools. They're just big hot dogs. And the kid's like, hey, over here, I need your help. And I'm like, what are you trying to do? And he's like, I'm trying to make this arrow float in space. And I'm like, yo, dude, I gotta go eat dinner. Like, I gotta get out of here. And I don't know. I took off my headset, and I'm just like, suddenly I'm back in reality. And it's the first time.
What was that like? What was the bridge like there?
It's the first time I've jumped back. I felt heavier. Everything felt so much heavier and so much like, and I'm in my real kitchen with real giant hot dogs and real floating
You're just like
arrows
lifting
and
stuff and just flying in the air.
I just like, I don't know. It was the first time that I've really completely felt like I was in another space. And it's funny because we talk about stuff like, I don't know, like The Matrix or like William Gibson stuff or I mean Ready Player One, for instance.
Sure.
And so it seems so kind of like late to the party now because we actually have that.
Yeah.
That sensation of
Right.
going to this non-existent realm and being like, hi there. And someone else is like, hello. And then I'm like, I'm talking to another human being in a determinedly non-human space. And it was just, I don't know, it was
No,
magical.
I'm with you there. Are you going back?
I think so. I got to sell those big hot dogs.
Hell yeah.
Well, and you talk about it being
they
here. I
won't
mean,
cut themselves up.
yes, it's here, but 99% of the people in the world haven't experienced it yet, and that's the part that it really is amazing to be around somebody that first goes through this. I got to walk around with a HoloLens on around the office a couple of years ago, and it changed the way I think about the world. I mean, it has messed with me to this day because it was amazing and insightful and incredible, but what what's possible, what I thought was possible. I was like, wow, no, the world will be a fundamentally different place in 10 years
Yeah.
than it is now because of things like PSVR and HoloLens and these emergent technologies. And some of that's going to be great and some of it's going to be terrifying.
I mean, you think of the leap from that first time you went in like an AOL chat room and talked to strangers to suddenly you've got Facebook groups on your phone where you're talking to people who you consider friends in real life, even though you never met them. And it's like that kind of creepy normalcy of just stuff like that. And to be like, I made giant hot dogs with a strange boy in cyberspace.
Your ghost boy.
My ghost friend.
I really appreciate that story because for all the negative ends of it and horrible things people were saying, showing one side of what's possible, but also the fact that people were trying to get real afterward and be like, oh, wait a minute, there's something else, all the way up to the optimism of let's build a restaurant, let's go build a xenomorph chamber. And I want to go build a big xenomorph chamber in some imaginary place. I'll never be able to do it in my apartment here in San Francisco.
The problem is all the dudes that go into that game and they're like, that's cool, I'll build a restaurant. Where's your real house?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
those
that's
guys,
part of it.
they're the ones that mess it
We're
up.
almost past that point where there's enough sort of common sense about internet etiquette that people don't really do that. And now it's more like, and I realized this thinking about it, like some guy was like, he comes up and you high five people to friend them. Like you do like a physical high five to virtually friend somebody. He did that and I rejected him and he's like, oh, you don't want to be my friend? And I was like, I got enough friends, man. Like,
Well,
I was like, I was turning down this internet stranger, not out of fear of some internet stranger, but because I have enough social obligations. And I was like, that's too much stress for me. I don't want to be your friend in the virtual reality.
There's a pedagogist named Peter Elbow who says that he believes that learning is an inherently violent process, that anytime we learn something, there's violence in it. Because learning disturbs us, learning upsets things, and that's a philosophical idea. It has its positives and negatives, but I do think with virtual reality and this kind of communication, violence in the disruptive sense is going to be a part of it. You talked about, hey, people that are going to exploit this. Yes, because we're all learning to use this together, and as our culture adapts to it, there will be violence, there will be strangeness, there will be abuse, there will be terrible things that happen, and there will also be discovery and wonder and new avenues for artistic expression that open up. Because that's what happens when you create something completely new. We don't do that very often. And when it happens, it's invariably, in the least Silicon Valley way possible, disruptive.
Yeah. So anyway, Rec Room available now on PSN. You can play it with your PlayStation VR, and you can check out my funky hot dog restaurant. I think we spelled it restaurant because I don't know. He's like 12. I don't know. He didn't know how to spell restaurant. All right, so real quick, I want to plug DICE. That is the Design, Innovate, Communicate, Entertain Summit that happens. A bunch of video game executives are all hanging out in Vegas. That's where Marty and Goldfarb are right now. They're going to be, interviewing people and schmoozing and whatnot. IGN is going to be streaming stuff that they're doing over there. That is, that is tomorrow, February 21st, starting at 9:45 a.m. Pacific time, ending 10 p.m. Pacific time. There's going to be the DICE Summit and then a Quake Live tournament. And then there's the DICE Awards, which are Thursday night, 8 p.m. Pacific to 9:30 p.m. Pacific time. So
I love there's a Quake Live tournament in there.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
I just love that a bunch of like video game executives are like, let's go to Vegas and play Quake. Let's do it.
I'm great with that. I love that idea.
Jared, one more time, can you plug your show?
Yeah, absolutely. Always happy to plug. Hop, Blip, and a Jump. You can find it on YouTube on our Pockets Full of Soup channel. You can find it at hopblipjump.com. You can find it on my Twitter, which is Petty Comma Jared. It's worth your time. It's worth a look. If you want to support it, the only way a project like this can exist, this isn't something that ad-supported media is going to work for. This is the kind of project that needs direct crowdfunding. So I'm going to PBS you here. If you can drop me $1 on Patreon or more, I'd appreciate it. The rewards are pretty good. It's patreon.com/Jared Petty. And
one of
that's
those
what the model's
rewards
built
is
around.
actually if you reach a certain goal, you will shave your beard. Is that
Well,
correct?
that's a very silly reward, but yes, if we somehow
that's
get
real?
there, that's real. If
Sounds
that's
like
a
you're
very
checking it
high
out.
reward, but yeah, that's the most youth group reward I could have come up with. But
Don't do that.
well, I've never shaved my beard. I've had it for 19 years. It is older. Like I've had my beard longer than I have it. I've never shaved it off. I grew up my freshman year of college. I love it. But if you want to see my weird left butt cheek face underneath here,
I'm trying to picture it. Honestly,
You know what it
it's the kind
is?
of
Here,
thing-
watch
there
this.
are-
Watch this.
Yeah.
Just picture a picture of his head from up here, but upside down.
There are more worthwhile goals along the way, but yes, the campaign started well. People have showed extraordinary generosity, and I know there are so many places that you can give your money right now, and that it's a world of creative endeavors. I do think this one's worth it. I think if you look at the product, you'll see that it's something pretty darn unique, and it's something that I think the
No,
world's
Jared,
a little
you
better place.
do
to
good
have.
stuff, and
Yeah,
we
you're an
both jumped on
amazing
your
voice.
show, and Yeah, thank you so much for coming by and jumping on here.
I miss this. I love doing this.
We
And
love you too.
And by the way, likewise, it's you heard of, I've heard of Weird Heat. What is that?
Oh,
Shirt
this
you're
old
wearing?
thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian and I just started a new show. It's called Weird Heat. It's youtube.com/weirdheat or patreon.com/weirdheat. Go check it out if you want.
You really should, because
Try not to
it's
plug it too much. Plugging
fascinating.
stuff is a horrible thing, so we don't want to do it too much.
You should watch Weird Heat. You really should. It's something completely different than you've seen before.
We have
That's true.
Yeah. Wait till you check out our second episode. It's all about disappointment.
Jared, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love having you.
This is home. This is where I belong. Doing this kind of silliness with y'all, and thank you for
And
letting me be your adorable,
you-
really old kid brother.
Are you now a regular over on Kind of Funny?
Yeah, I'm over at Kind of Funny Games Daily now on Thursdays. I'm also the new host of new third host of the Kind of Funny Games Cast, and that is a fantastic opportunity. Oh, I'm so excited about it because I love the stuff that they make. So yeah, I'll be back on Kind of Funny Games Daily Thursday and Friday this week, then regular Thursdays starting every week after that, and I'll be on Gamescast every week talking about the games we love.
Beautiful.
I hope that y'all will stop by because likewise, those nice boys and girls do some good stuff.
That's a good show. I did that show 3 weeks ago with Tim. We did a one-on-one. It was really, really fun.
That is a great episode.
Thank you.
You are fantastic on that
Thanks.
episode. It's a kind of a biography of
All
your,
right,
of
get
your
a
life
room,
through
get a
games,
room.
and I really
yeah,
enjoyed it.
I agree that I'm a great man with good things to say sometimes.
No,
Huge
but
muscles.
That's a
Excellent
that is a
kisser.
standout episode of that.
It was
show.
cool. I got sexiest dude trophy for that.
All right. Okay. Anyway.
So there's the plugs. Hope y'all are still
Okay.
listening.
You can find us all on Twitter. I'm Max Scoville. Brian is Agent Bizzle, and Jared is Petty, Jared. Head over to youtube.com/IGNBeyond and go subscribe to that channel where we're putting up some very bad questions from you, the viewers.
I did a yawn and then I turned into like a growl to hide it.
That's the end of the show. The end.
Beyond.